The film begins in a crowded, chaotic streets of Bangkok. We meet Luke, a disgraced yet daring archaeologist, who speeds down the street on his motorcycle. He has just broken into a high-security auction and stolen a valuable painting. As he maneuvers through the madness of tuk-tuks, cars, and pedestrians, his phone buzzes. On the other end is a dangerous local gangster, a man Luke once promised to split the score with. Luke ignores the call, his eyes fixed ahead, unaware that the gangster and his crew are closing in from behind. The gangsters soon surround him, their cars boxing him in until the gangster shouts for Luke to stop and hand over the painting. Luke halts his bike for a moment, appearing cornered, but then suddenly jerks the throttle and tears away. The chase surges into the narrow alleys of the local markets, where Luke skids through crowded stalls, scattering fruit, fabric, and startled merchants in his wake. The gangsters struggle to keep up in the tight space, giving Luke just enough room to weave his way out and disappear into the winding streets. Luke eventually shakes his pursuers and makes his way to the train station. With no time to waste, he dashes across the platform and leaps onto a departing train bound for another city. That evening, while riding the train, Luke is approached by a woman named Esme, a refined but ruthless art collector who has been tracking him. She calmly tells him she and her men are there to take the painting. As she speaks, her men close in and attempt to restrain Luke while Esme snatches the artwork. A brawl erupts in the train, and Luke fights his way through the men, landing blows with quick precision, then wrestles the painting back from Esme. Thinking fast, he shoves her into a restroom and locks the door, trapping her inside. Without a second thought, he scrambles onto the roof of the moving train and hurls himself off into the night. He lands hard, pulling out his phone to call his crew. They answer, promising they'll be on their way to extract him. A couple of weeks later, we meet Charlotte, Luke's estranged sister, works tirelessly, though her personal life is unraveling. She is caught in the middle of a messy divorce and a custody battle for her son, leaving her frazzled and exhausted. Luke suddenly appears in her life again, uninvited. But he isn't there just to reconnect. His real purpose is to steal Rembrandt's Head of Christ, a priceless painting housed in the museum. Charlotte tries to talk him out of it, but Luke isn't swayed. He executes the theft, forcing Charlotte to join him as alarms blare. They race outside, where Luke's sleek sports car is waiting. Police cars give chase through the city, sirens screaming, but Luke skillfully loses them by driving into the back of a truck, the doors slamming shut and concealing their escape. Inside the truck, Charlotte is stunned to discover that Luke is working with members of their father's old team. Their father, once a notorious art collector and adventurer, had left behind unfinished business. Murphy, one of the team members, inspects the painting only to discover that it isn't authentic. Tensions rise, and Luke, not wanting Charlotte to interfere, sprays her with a chemical that knocks her unconscious. Charlotte later wakes up in a park, disoriented, just as Inspector Jamal confronts her about the theft. She insists she had no part in it and even tried to stop Luke, but Jamal doesn't believe her. He warns her that he'll be keeping a close eye on her. Shaken and furious, Charlotte eventually tracks down Luke and his team at their hideout. She angrily tells her brother that because of him, she's now lost her job. Luke brushes it off, insisting it's actually good news. Now she can join them on a mission bigger than either of them ever imagined, finding the Fountain of Youth. Charlotte scoffs at the idea, refusing to believe the fountain exists. But Luke and his crew show her the evidence they've been gathering for years: cryptic paintings, ancient texts, and photographs that suggest the mythical source is real. They warn her of its power, saying the fountain will tempt you with everything your heart desires, if you dare to drink from it. Luke is determined to find it, convinced that doing so will cement their family's name in history. Charlotte is shocked when Luke reveals the painting he stole in Thailand, proof of how far he's already gone. Deb, another member of the team, explains that each painting they've stolen hides secret numbers they believe are coordinates pointing to the fountain's location. But translating the ancient text to decipher the coordinates requires Charlotte's expertise. Charlotte refuses, saying the mission is already flawed because the painting Luke stole at the museum isn't authentic. She insists she has no part in this, her focus is on winning custody of her son, not chasing myths. It's then that Owen, the wealthy financier behind the expedition, steps forward. Calm and calculating, he tells Charlotte he can pay for the best lawyers in London and help her win her custody battle. But there's a condition: she must join the team in their quest for the Fountain of Youth. Weeks later, Luke joins Charlotte at her son Thomas's music school. Inside the quiet hall, Thomas sits at the piano, his small hands gliding over the keys as he performs. Charlotte listens intently, pride in her eyes. When Thomas finishes, Luke claps loudly and cheerfully, showing how proud he is of his nephew. Afterward, Luke takes the moment to speak with Charlotte again. He tells her once more that he needs her on the expedition. At first, She hesitates like she has before, but after seeing his determination and hearing his reasoning, she finally agrees. A few days later, the crew gathers aboard Owen's massive ship. They track a location under the sea where an old sunken vessel rests, one they believe holds crucial evidence and treasure that will lead them closer to the Fountain of Youth. Using special lifting balloons, they manage to raise the wreck from the ocean depths, pulling it to the surface. Once steady, they climb aboard and begin exploring. The corridors are dark and damp, water dripping down rusted beams. Luke and Charlotte move cautiously, searching for what they came for, unaware that far above them, a helicopter approaches, as Esme and her men are on their way. Inside the wreck, Luke and Charlotte locate a safe. They break into it and uncover a collection of paintings, each holding symbols and patterns that may hold the answers they need. Just as they prepare to leave with their discovery, Esme and her men board the ship. Quietly, they move through the vessel, looking for Luke. Soon, Luke and Charlotte are stopped, surrounded by Esme and her gunmen. She demands the papers and paintings. Luke refuses, standing his ground, and a fight breaks out. Shots echo through the metal halls. Luke and Charlotte fight off several attackers, but Esme grabs Charlotte, pressing a gun to her head. Luke is forced into a choice, but he still resists, sure that Esme won't actually hurt his sister. Suddenly, the wreck begins to shift and groan. The ship is sinking. The deck tilts violently, throwing everyone off balance. Chaos erupts as water rushes in, swallowing rooms and corridors. Gunmen stumble, slipping as the ship tips further. Luke grabs Charlotte and they fight their way out, leaping onto their boat just before the wreck collapses back under the waves. Days later, the group regathers at their hideout. The paintings are laid out before them. They debate over the cryptic text, unsure if the markings are letters, numbers, or something else entirely. Suddenly, the sound of heavy boots fills the space. Police storm the hideout, led by Inspector Jamal. He steps forward, confronting Charlotte, reminding her that he had always suspected she was guilty of theft and conspiracy. But before the crew can defend themselves, another group arrives. The Thai gangsters storm in with weapons drawn, aiming at everyone, even the police. They too demand the paintings. The air is thick with tension as guns point in every direction. Thinking fast, Luke speaks up. He tells the gangsters he knows where a far more valuable painting is hidden, one that would dwarf the worth of what they see now. He promises to hand it over if they let his crew go. The leader agrees, and Luke's crew is allowed to step out. Inside, Luke unlocks his safe. As he does, the police suddenly seize the chance to ambush the gangsters, and gunfire erupts. Chaos fills the hideout as police and gangsters exchange bullets. In the midst of the firefight, Luke crawls away, slipping through a back route where his crew is waiting. They escape on a boat, leaving the police and gangsters to tear each other apart. When the dust settles, the police emerge victorious, but by then Luke and his team are long gone. Later that night, Luke dreams vividly. He finds himself standing in front of the Fountain of Youth, the water shimmering with an unnatural glow. He lifts a glass, drinks, and feels strength flood into him. But then, horror strikes as he sees Charlotte and Thomas nearby, their life force draining into him, their faces withering as his youth grows, and he jolts awake in terror. Charlotte is beside him, shaking his shoulder, and Luke realizes he's on a private plane. Charlotte reassures him, telling him that Thomas is now with her for good after she finally won the custody battle. Not long after, they land in Austria. The crew makes their way to a historic library, where the head librarian greets them warmly, assuming they are respected archaeologists here to study rare collections. She guides them toward the library's most prized treasures, the first ancient Bible scripts. The crew pores over the text, searching for answers, but the calm is broken when Luke receives a direct call from Murphy. His voice is sharp. Esme and her men have just arrived. Moments later, Esme storms in with her guards, hunting for Luke. Luke steps out to face her. She reveals another book in her possession, one he needs desperately, and a fight breaks out. Luke gains the upper hand, hurling her over a balcony railing. She dangles, hanging on by her grip. Without finishing her, he rushes back to the others. In the reading room, Luke sprays a chemical into the air, knocking the librarian unconscious. They steal the Bible, then plant explosives. The floor blasts open, revealing an escape tunnel beneath. They vanish into the tunnels just as Esme and the recovering librarian enter, but they're too late. The crew emerges hours later outside the city, climbing into Murphy's waiting car. They drive off, leaving the library in chaos. That evening, they regroup at a hotel, where Owen and Thomas are already waiting. The team tries to transcribe the ancient text from the stolen Bible, but the meaning continues to elude them. As frustration grows, Charlotte snaps. She declares that involving Thomas has been a mistake, that their mission is putting him directly in harm's way. She grabs her son and storms out. Outside, Thomas looks up at her calmly. He tells her they've all been reading the mystery wrong. The symbols aren't letters or numbers at all, they're musical notes. Back inside the hotel, Thomas opens his laptop and begins playing the notes from the recovered paintings, and a melody fills the room. On the screen, they identify the song, 7 Wonders of the World. The crew connects the clue and realizes one of those wonders is in the pyramids of Giza, and that's where their next location is. They waste no time. Soon, the group is aboard another private plane, flying through the night. Hours later, they land in Egypt. Dust swirls in the desert wind as they approach the pyramids. There, they meet Professor Bishara, who greets them and guides them into the ancient structures. He leads them toward a sealed entrance that may hold the key to the fountain. But Owen has already planned ahead. His men begin drilling through the stone walls, eager to reach their goal faster. Elsewhere, Esme is with an elder in Vatican City. She tells him Luke and his crew now possess the ancient Bible, and the elder's face hardens. He warns that if they reach the fountain, balance will be destroyed. He gives Esme a small key, telling her it is her responsibility to ensure that no one makes it out alive if they find the fountain, and she accepts the task grimly. Outside the pyramids, Inspector Jamal arrives with his men. But the site is heavily guarded by Owen's forces. Jamal approaches under a white rag, signaling peace, hoping to negotiate access. The guards refuse and Jamal has no choice but to retreat for now. Inside, Owen's drilling succeeds. The wall collapses, revealing a narrow hidden chamber. The crew steps inside, where a massive stone slab rests in the center. They believe the entrance to the fountain lies beneath it. They debate how to move it, but Thomas already knows. He kneels, recalling the notes from the paintings, and begins tapping the rhythm on a nearby drum. Suddenly, the chamber trembles. Trumpets of stone roar to life, echoing through the pyramid, and the massive slab rises into the air. Charlotte steps forward and pushes it aside easily. Immediately, the floor beneath them begins to descend, lowering like an elevator into the depths. Luke, Charlotte, Thomas, Owen, and one of his guards ride it down into darkness. Outside, Inspector Jamal readies his men for an assault. As they move, one of their vehicles explodes in a burst of fire. Gunfire erupts as Owen's men open fire. Jamal's team is pinned down in the chaos. From a distance, Esme watches the battle unfold with her guards. Silent, she waits, observing the fight from the shadows. Later, the crew descends deep into the heart of the pyramid, the space narrower as they move further down. Their lanterns cast flickering shadows across the carved walls, revealing ancient symbols etched into the stone and statues of forgotten gods staring at them from the darkness. As they press on, they come across a large golden panel embedded in the wall. The surface is covered in elaborate carvings written in an ancient script. Charlotte steps forward, carefully studying the inscriptions, her fingers brushing the lines with reverence. It becomes clear that this is more than just decoration, it's a lock of some kind. She then finds a strange red stone resting on a statue. Charlotte picks it up, and realizes it's the missing piece to activate the panel. Holding her breath, she fits the stone into the carved indentation on the panel. A deep rumbling echoes through the chamber as gears grind behind the walls. Slowly, the golden surface shifts and opens, revealing a hidden passageway beyond. The crew exchanges tense glances before stepping through, descending into the lowest part of the pyramid. Below, the path opens into a vast chamber, and there it is, the entrance to the legendary Fountain of Youth. A shimmering pool rests in the center of the room, glowing faintly as though the water itself is alive. For a moment, the crew is stunned into silence, as they have finally found it. But the awe quickly shifts into conflict. Owen steps forward, his eyes burning with greed. He turns to Luke and demands that he enter the fountain first, wanting proof that it is safe. Charlotte immediately steps in, refusing on behalf of her brother, but Owen grows impatient. He draws a gun, and when Luke hesitates, Owen fires. The bullet tears into Luke's arm, forcing him backward in pain. Bleeding, Luke stumbles toward the fountain. Drops of his blood hit the glowing water, and instantly the pool reacts. The surface ripples and rises unnaturally, reaching toward him as though alive. The water coils around his body, lifting him into the air. His wounds begin to close as he feels a surge of power and energy coursing through him. His mind floods with visions, Charlotte, Thomas, and the moments he dreamed of before. He realizes then that the visions were never fantasies, but warnings. The fountain comes with a price. If he drinks, his family will pay with their lives. With clarity, Luke resists the temptation. He allows the water to heal him but refuses to drink, and the fountain gently sets him down. Owen, consumed by greed, cannot hold back. He steps into the fountain himself, letting the water wrap around him. Unlike with Luke, the water does not soothe. He drinks eagerly, believing he has won immortality. But instead of granting eternal life, the fountain begins to drain him. His body convulses, the glow of the water turning violent as it senses the corruption in his heart. At that moment, Esme and Inspector Jamal burst into the chamber. Esme, seeing what is happening, quickly takes the ancient key she's been carrying and slots it into a mechanism on the wall. The pyramid trembles violently, stone cracking and dust falling from the ceiling as the collapse begins. Meanwhile, Owen screams in agony as the fountain consumes him from within. His strength drains away, and the water finally pulls the life out of him entirely. The glowing pool darkens as the fountain seals itself shut, vanishing along with Owen. The crew wastes no time, with the structure collapsing around them. They sprint through the narrowing passageways, barely making it out as the pyramid caves in on itself. Rocks crash down behind them, sealing the chamber forever. Outside, they collapse onto the sand, coughing and catching their breath. Inspector Jamal, having witnessed everything, tells Charlotte that she is off the hook. Now that he has the stolen paintings in hand, her name will be cleared. Esme approaches Luke, the two exchanging a long look. Whatever grudge they once held between them fades in this moment of survival. She kisses him lightly on the cheek before walking away. The remaining crew watches as the sun shines, the pyramid now buried and the fountain lost once again. Though they never drank from its waters, there's a quiet satisfaction in knowing Luke resisted temptation. Together, they walk away, leaving behind both the danger and the legend of the Fountain of Youth. Please like, comment and subscribe for more notifications. Until next time. See you soon.